the languages, will there be an updated version of the translation?
Be what?
Updated.
Okay. Of translation, not tafsir, not interpretation, translation.
Yeah, because for example, as one, perhaps the translator maybe have gained more and more knowledge about the Quran and then
So translation always works like that. So this is why there's so many translations of the Quran, because some translators would look at others and feel like either it's inaccurate or it's lacking in many aspects, and then they will attempt, and then another would look at it and attempt. So this sort of things will always happen. And one translator would, I would guess it is very possible for them at one stage look at a verse and say it means this, and at another stage look at it and think it means something else, based on new knowledge that they gained. Maybe a different tafsir that they read, or something like that. But again, since it's all interpretation anyway, as we mentioned earlier, translations are tafsir or ta'wil. They cannot be translation. In our minds, we cannot take them as equating the words of the Quran to the words of a different language. So since it's all tafsir, then it would all be okay if it fulfills the conditions that we mentioned. In other words, if it's not translation, it's not blameworthy translation by opinion. As for tafsir itself, can the interpretation change over time? So there are two types of interpretation. So there is allocratic interpretation, and then there's autocratic interpretation. Allocratic interpretation is where the interpretation can change based on circumstances. So due to circumstantial changes, either to the reader or to the time or to the context or to the writer, the interpretation of words can change. Autocratic is where it cannot change no matter what. In other words, there was intended meaning in the words that transcended circumstances, and so no matter how circumstances change, the interpretation will not change. So, is the Qur'an open to allocratic translation or interpretation, or is it entirely autocratic? So there's a mix where we can say that from one end we must believe that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the Qur'an, every word had fixed meaning. There is no word that was circumstantial, that it can mean something now, but it can mean something later on, from the point of view of revelation. So Allah Azza wa Jal communicated meaning specifically, and those meanings are fixed. From our end now, from the end of the reader, we'll say that some verses of the Qur'an, our understanding of it may change due to circumstances. And this is the smaller portion of the verses of the Qur'an. So we're not going to say the meaning changed. The meaning wasn't communicated to us. We're always trying to understand what it means. So the meaning, we'll leave that to Allah Azza wa Jal. On Yawm al-Qiyamah, in the Akhirah, maybe we'll be informed exactly what was meant. But since we don't have a text from the Prophet ﷺ or from the Qur'an itself explaining what it means, we're trying to understand it. Our understanding may change over time based on different circumstances. So things that the companions may not have understood, due to certain things that we have now, we might understand it. Our exploration of space, for example, may give us some understanding of some things that the Qur'an may be talking about. We don't know for sure, but it can enhance the way we understand some verses of the Qur'an. Our understanding of medicine and anatomy and the human body, a lot of that can inform our understanding of the Qur'an. But verses that has to do with fixed things like the nature of Allah Azza wa Jal, nature of man, destiny, hell, heaven, those things will not, these are autocratic. They're fixed and they will never change. So no matter how man change in his philosophy, if the moral philosophy of man change, the morality of the Qur'an doesn't change with it. If the legal philosophy of man changes, the legal code of the Qur'an doesn't change with it. Right? If the theological aspect of man's conception changes, those aspects of the Qur'an wouldn't change with it. So we need to be very careful with that. So we wouldn't have, the Qur'an is not open to a complete reinterpretation every time man goes through a paradigmical change in terms of the way he thinks. That's clear? And even the verses that we say may be enhanced over time based on certain factors, again, is just our understanding of it, not that the meaning, we're not going to say the meaning changed. So we may understand it differently. And then that way we attribute it to us as an interpretive act. So then if it turns out to be wrong, we say, oh, we got it wrong. Not that somebody said, oh, the Qur'an got something wrong. Say, no, this is not possible at all.